to go? Yeah? All right. So, hi. My name is Michael. I own a small company called Mouth Media. I've got to start my timer. We've got 25 minutes, which is not a lot, so we won't really go into details. And we're up against Armina's with a particle system. You cannot beat a really good particle system, so we'll just get started. So basically, I've been asked to come and talk a little bit about how we use Notch in broadcast. Oh, that's gone too far. That's a good start. That should play. Anyway, so we've done a couple of projects which, you know, they actually move. There's actually clips in there, but let's just skip that. In preparing this talk, I was thinking, you know, how did it end up here? There's so many talented people in this room. I don't really consider myself very talented, but I'm thinking so many people in here, and yet I'm standing here talking. So I started out as a lighting designer, and that's really how it happened. They shoved the lighting meter in my hands, and they said, on you go, you're a lighting designer now. I sucked at it, I really did. But the good thing that it did is it showed me WYSIWYG. It introduced me to WYSIWYG this early 2000, end of 99, 2000, and I thought, this is amazing. You can start designing in 3D, and you can change your lighting, you've got your shadows, you've got a bit of smoke. And that's really what got me going. And from then on, I ventured into cinema 4D and After Effects in this 3D space, which is for me very important. Those three things have been the tool I've been using for all these years. In cinema 4D, you know, I'm the architect, I'm the artist, I'm the creator, all the things that I failed at in real life. I am behind my computer screen, which is really, really fantastic. Same thing After Effects. I'm the director, I'm the editor, I'm the composer, which I absolutely love. And then I keep working in that 3D world. I keep working in that Z space, in that depth, that visual aspect of it. And like with any good Venn diagram, there's something in the middle. And up until a couple of years ago, I had no idea what that was. And I was looking for it until at some point, a friend of mine, Jo Pauli from Visual Solutions, gave me a shout and said, Michael, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, well, nothing. We got to go to Germany. There's this guy from London who's designed this real-time effects engine. I don't really know what it does, but it makes flames appear out of Mick Jagger's head. And he's in Germany, so let's go and see him. So off we went to Germany, all the time asking myself, like, real-time, what is this? We'd just done a show where this super intelligent dude had designed a system that turned motion into particles, and it worked, but there was only one person in the whole world that knew how to work it. So it wasn't really interesting for us to use in a show. So we're driving up to Germany, and I'm thinking it's going to be another one of those computer geeks who's designed something that is not applicable, but only to him. So we get into the studio in Germany, in Lexus Studio, and there's Matt Svoboda. And he talks about Notch all day, and he's showing us these amazing examples. I missed half of those examples because I was trying to get that ripple to work. But everything that he showed to us is, you know, for us, that kind of a light switch started turning on the way back. We started thinking, well, if you can do that and that and that, and it all happens in real time, that's pretty amazing. So a month after we got introduced to Notch, my then employer had a big show. It was a massive show. It was 20,000 people, 4 nights in a row. And we thought, we'll have to give this Notch thing a go, because, you know, how else are you going to learn it? So I convinced the creative director, so let us have a go at it. And he said, are you sure you can do it? I said, yeah, absolutely. So we went for it. We went with 2 or 3 people. We created. We thought we did a good job. We high-fived all around until the next day I open up a newspaper and the critic says that we somehow managed to create screensavers for Windows 98. Now, that really hurt at that point in time, especially because, you know, there's 20,000 people in the venue seeing you suck 4 nights in a row. So, but that was our first introduction to Notch. There was one moment in that show. I'm going to play that clip. There was one moment in that show that, to me, changed the course of my career, because that's when I realized this is what real-time content design is going to be like in the future. So this block, it was just a cloner of cubes, and it was reacting to music, and we piped the live feed into it. And all of a sudden you had this amazing thing happening for 3 minutes, that was happening live, and we had control of how big the cubes were scaling. So that to me was like an eye-opener. We thought, well, this is really something special, because all of a sudden, audio, video, lighting, everything just clicks into one. And that's a very powerful moment. Anyway, fast forward a couple of months, and Soapstar Superstar gets a revival in Belgium. And it's for a network, VRT, 10 weeks. And I somehow managed to convince the producer, so, you know, this real-time stuff, let us use it. And I didn't know if it was going to work, but let us use it, because it's 93 songs. You've got 2 days of preparation. You get your list on Monday morning, 13 songs. Wednesday, you've got, 3 camera runs per song, and you've got to be ready. So we thought, well, this real-time tool is really the tool to have to use this. So we had like 450 square meters of LED. It was all 5.6 millimeter pixel pitch, but it was all small ribbons. So there's not really a big canvas, so that's an extra challenge to do that. So you've got your 3 camera runs on the Wednesday. You go home, all stressed out because you're not ready. You've got a dress rehearsal, you've got a show, and then the next week it all starts all over again. Yeah. Anyway, so we did the show, and Luke, NotchCon happens, and Luke phones me up and says, Michael, do you fancy coming to talk about your experiences with this? I said, yeah, of course, but how do you do it? He said, well, just speak about, the things that you've encountered in those 10 weeks and what the challenges are. So he said, why don't you group it into 5 lessons? So there we go. The first lesson is define the world that you're working in. It's very important that you know what you're working in, not just the studio, but things that happen in the studio. Know your gear, very important. Performance versus impact, it's a balancing act. Remote editing is key, it's very important, that one, to get it all up and running in time. And sailing to the wind, that's the last one. That's the advice I'm going to leave you with. The first lesson is define the world that you are working in. That's very, it's essential when you're creating graphics for a high-pressure TV show. Look beyond the graphic layer. Look up. How many cameras do you have? Where are they positioned? What are the angles? What are the lenses? Not that that's important. It's not going to define your show, but sometimes you're going to have a shot that's been shot with a long lens, and that means your backplate's going to be stuck against your artist, and it might be interesting to make a shot based on that. Do your homework on the director, on the lighting designer. Is your director, what kind of director is he? Is he a cut to every beat director, or is he open to suggestions? Does he really need to cut according to his book, or can he throw the book aside and say, oh, well, let's do this? Same with your lighting designer. Is he, it's green, or is he like, I'm going green, you do whatever you want, or, expose the color and, let my lighting operator deal with it. So do your homework a little bit. Don't do an extensive search on it. Just know who he is. Or she is, doesn't matter, and use that to your advantage. Keep an eye on your time. You've got 13 songs to create in 2 days, so pick 1 or 2 songs that you're spending a lot of time at, and then keep the other ones very simple, because you're not going to be able to produce 13 masterpieces. So choose 1 or 2, say that's where we're going to focus on, and then the others, I'm not saying neglect them, but just keep that simple. And also see the bigger picture. It's important. How many, is there dancers on stage? What is the artist wearing? What's the lyrics of the song? There might be snippets in there that can inspire you to create a graphic for that particular song. The next one is, know your kit. Know the strengths and weaknesses of your pipeline. It's very important that you know what hardware you're working on. Otherwise, this is going to happen. It's going to take over, and it's going to control your show, and it's going to run away with it. It really is a problem. So define your pipeline and stick to that. Your GPU, so the GPU that you use to design your blocks is not necessarily the same GPU that you use to play out, and you might get very unpleasant surprises. So be aware of that. Notch has this performance tab built in, and use that. It's not accurate to the frame, but it is a good indication of where you're going. Your inputs and your outputs, what are you playing your content on? Are you playing it on an LED? Are you playing it in projection? If it's LED, you'll have more power, but that beautiful particle system that Armina's just taught you to create is going to get lost. Details are going to get lost in that. Or is it projection? And then you're going to have all the fine details, but you're not going to have any power. Or, projectionists are going to hate me now for saying that. You have less power than an LED screen. So know that and try and keep that, work that into your design. What inputs do you really need? I mean, we had 4 SDI inputs in our show, and we said, oh, we'll take 2 VTRs in, we'll take 2 live cameras in, we'll put effects in there, and we'll play that back. And it all worked fine, and if the clip had played, you would have seen that. You'll just have to believe me when I say that it worked. So just know how much you need of that, and then work with that. It's not because you've got them 4 coming in, you need to use all 4 of them all the time. The workload's important. What else is your media server running? Is it running Sock Puppet? Is it running ArtNet? Is it running Timecode? All these things are going to cost you in performance. So make sure that you're aware of everything that's going on in your media server. Define how much you need of the media server and claim that. Say, right, I need that much of it. That's for my design, and everything else will have to be subject to that. And for other songs, we can switch it around. So it's the only thing I can say. Know the media server that you're working with. Know the limits of that machine. Performance versus impact. It's a very careful balancing act. You've got to find the right balance. And by that, I mean frames per second is king. Now, there's another clip coming. Anyway, so frames per second is king. We've just been to China last weekend. We did a massive AR project, which took 4 weeks in the making. Why did it take so long? Because they wanted fire. Fire is it's a tricky thing. Fire, water, anything organic is hard to do. And yet we managed to set the whole set on fire at 50 frames per second. It took a long, long time to get there, and we had a massive help from Kev Zhu from All of It Now over in the States, who is the particle god. Honestly, if you're ever stuck about particles, get in touch with Kev, and he'll go like, oh, that's easy. So these guys have been a massive help, and that's something that we touched on yesterday. Define what you're good at, and then find people who are better than you to help you achieve your goal. That's how this works. Well, in my experience, that's how this works. So same with the clip ups, the upper clip, same there. There's a lot of sequencing going on. There's a lot happening. There's real-time reflections. There's so many particles. It's got to be keyframed. You've got to move it all around. That all is very intense, and still, when you start doing AR and you start tracking your camera, you have to keep an eye on your frames per second. Without that, nothing works. So frames per second is king. Sorry about the flicking back and forth. Honestly, in my head, this was going really easy. Audio is tricky. Broadcast audio plays in 2 worlds. You've got whatever's happening in the studio, your live band playing and your PA, and then you've got your broadcast audio in the van, and there's an offset. There's always a bit of an offset. And then what trigger do you use to animate your graphics? We had a clip where we had like the snares of a guitar, and we would have that oscillate to the bass, and it worked really well. But the lighting guy, they're all very sensitive to the beat, lighting operator, and he went like, oh, something's off, and that started a whole chain of events where at the end of the evening, nobody liked the audio because it was off. So be aware when you start using audio as a trigger in broadcast that there is an offset and that you might run into issues there. And, I think if you choose your studio audio, it might work for the studio, but then the OB van might complain that something's off. So test that before you actually start building your whole show around the audio triggers. Keep it simple. It's a good advice. Just keep it simple. Don't try and build, massive animations, because you're going to see it in the background of a shot, which is probably going to show you that much of your graphics and a great big close-up in front of it. So that usually works best. Real-time versus baking. Always ask yourself the question, does it have to play back in real time? It's not because it's created in real time that you have to play it back in real time. If you trigger it externally, like audio or any other device that can activate your animation, then yes. If not, just bake it. Not just really, really good at rendering your animations at warp speed. Bake it, build it, bake it, and then play it out in timeline. And if it doesn't have to play real time in a live environment, don't do it. But if you like a risk, just go for it. Let the lighting desk do some of the work. That's very important. Lighting operators, as I just said, they're great guys, but they're so sensitive to the beat. And they've got their own little way of tapping in just before the beat. And it doesn't make one difference to me, but they kind of go off and know it's not in sync. So let them do some of the work. Give them some PNG frames in your media server or some clips and just connect it through Artnet or DMX and just say, right, on you go. You create the animation. It works. They're very happy doing that. Obviously not for all the songs, but they're very happy doing that. And then, that takes a little bit of work away from you. You still have to create the animation, but just render out a couple of PNG frames, put it in your media server, and just link it up and let them do it. Manage expectations. Always the case. It's not because Notch can do pretty much anything that you'll be able to get everything done in one show. Just tell them, this is what we're going to do this week, and then next week, we're going to look at that. Just be in control of these expectations for yourself, for your team, and for the rest of the crew. Remote editing is key. This remote editing capacity of Notch into the media server, it's designed to help you, and you should let it do that. Network connections, they have a purpose. So what you do is you package when you've built your animation, you package it, you give it to the media server. In your rehearsals, you connect, you finalize. During rehearsal, the first rehearsal is rubbish because you're just going like this. And the second rehearsal, you're actually looking up a couple of times. Third rehearsal, you're happy with it. And then you finalize, you repackage, and you send it back to the media server. Use the media server. The developers of media servers are very smart people. They've added in a couple of basic editing tools, keyframes, scale, colors, blending modes of layers. Use that to your advantage. You don't have to send a complete finished package to the media server. There is options in the media server to help you finalize your design. Don't be afraid to work in layers and use the blending modes. Stay connected. I always stay connected in the network, even though if my media server operator goes, is looking angry at me, I said, don't worry. When you stay connected, you can just, as soon as you see things going wrong, you might be able to salvage something just by staying connected to the media server. Turn a no into a yes. We touched on that yesterday as well. Sometimes, you've created something and you think it's awesome, and the director's looking at it, and it's not really what he thought, but he's trying to find a clever way of letting you know that. And usually it ends up in they can't say it. So what you do is you just log in, you start tweaking things a bit, change the color, change the shape, things like that, and that usually turns a no into a yes just by remote editing your whole blog. Have a plan B in place. When you package something for cloners or for particle systems, add in a couple of extra geometry elements. You don't have to use them, but put them in the block when you assemble the block, when you package the block, and put it in the media server. Because that way, when something's not sitting right, you could just throw in another geometry and just connect it up, and that gives you the option to do that. If you don't pack it in when you send it through, it's going to be really hard to get that in there. The last bit of advice is sailing to the wind. What we found using Notch at first is people they don't know what it is. And so they're certainly broadcast. Everything's kind of, it's got to be broadcast, got to be general, got to be this, no. And then when you rock up and you say, hey guys, we're going to do this real time, they're like, what? So choose a path and don't divert of it. Not because the first guy you come across says, oh, this is never going to work. Say, okay, we'll see. Don't let that discourage you. Don't stop for the initial resistance that you will encounter. Inevitably, you will encounter that, especially when you venture into, oh, we're going to do AR. Oh, are you? How are you going to do it? You're not going to use VisRT. You're not going to do this. I said, don't worry about it. It's going to work. Trust me. Make suggestions. Point out what your director or your lighting designer is not seeing. There's two examples I want to put forward. One of them was this. It was a title. It was a girl singing, shout out to my ex. And we were 5-6 weeks into the show, and we were starting to get a bit confident, maybe a bit cocky, and we thought, you know what, we'll do real-time perspective mapping. It's going to be awesome. Obviously, the director thought, oh, you guys, should we do that? I said, well, it's going to be fine. Just put your camera where I tell you to put the camera. let that thing happen, let the title pop you in, straight up to you, and then it's going to work. So it took us a lot of convincing for the director to put his camera there, for the cameraman to actually get what we were trying to do. Rehearsal, camera was there, director cut it, and it was all fine. It worked fantastic, right? I wish I would have recorded that, but we didn't. So we thought, well, this is going to work in the live show as well. And obviously it didn't, because the camera was not there, or the director didn't tell his vision mixer to cut it. But if we hadn't persisted during the dress rehearsal to do that, we wouldn't have had that one little shot where we thought, this is absolutely awesome. Unfortunately, we don't have any proof of that. But try and dare experiment and dare tell your crew that what you're trying to do, and convince them that it's a good idea. So AR, what we're using AR for, that's not playing. Very annoying. Anyway, there's another angle to the fire. There's a hand coming out, and they only shot it from this angle, and you can only see, you don't really see any details of the hand that kind of lights the fire. But if you move the camera to the other side, and you can because it's 3D, so tell them, move the camera around, and this is when I started realizing that you're no longer just a content designer. You're venturing, when you start into 3D AR like we are doing, you venture into more production design. Because you've created this 3D world that's out there, nobody can see it unless they point the camera at it. So you have to tell them, say, point your camera there. If it was a real prop, if I hung a real prop in the air, that cameraman would be all over that. He'd turn his chip around, he'd be zooming in and all that, but because he can't see it, he doesn't know it's there, so you've got to tell them. So creating these AR graphics is not just about, oh, we've done it, it's in there, now track it. It's also about changing the narrative of how you approach these things. If you just design the asset and you just drop it in there, it's not going to get seen, or it's only going to get seen from one angle, and you're going to miss so much detail in it. So that's a big part of creating graphics for that kind of work. It doesn't stop by just creating the asset. Persistence will get you there. Same thing, don't give up, just keep going. Even they say this is not going to work, you know it's going to work because you've seen it work in your studio. You've designed this in 3D, you've turned your camera around, you know it's there. Trust the machine, it will do the job for you. Dare to fail, just like us, your first show, you fail for 48,000 people. You go home, you cry, you pick yourself up, you come back out and you do it again, and it will get you there. RTFM, read the manual. Read the manual. The manual's there. Ryan's done an amazing job at building this omnibus of all these nodes and what they do. There's samples in there. There's sample project. There's pictures of how to connect these nodes. Read the manual, because it's actually, it's almost there. There's still there's a lot of nodes, but they've really worked very, very hard over the last 2 years. They've added some giants in their field to the team, Will Smith and Adrian. I mean, these guys are masters in their craft, and they've joined the team of Notch. So there's a huge, huge involvement in how Notch is, not only being programmed and being used by us, but also how it's being supported. So there is that, but you have to do a bit of the work. You have to read the manual. You have to try. And if that doesn't work, ask for help. The community, the Facebook community, the online community is really tight. You will get an answer. You're not going to get laughed out of the room. There's no stupid questions. There is not. But do a bit of the work yourself. Like Ben said yesterday, don't post the very first thing that you're creating. Try again, take a second or a third go at it, and then post it. And then someone will come out and say, hey, this is really good start. Try doing this and that and that. Notch Help Desk is really good, but they're not going to create your show for you. So they will point out where you're going wrong, and then it's up to you. But don't be afraid to ask for help for people. That's how we... that's how we did it, and that's how we got here. Anyway, I'm out of time. Thank you. I'm really sorry about the clips, but they are on the Notch website, so have a look at the showcase. And if you've got any questions, just give me a shout or send me an email or give me a call. Okay? Thank you.